This is the iconic poem of Lord of the Rings, and what I'm going to address today is about the first line, 3 rings of the Elven kings. Not about the role and history of the 3 rings, Narya, Nenya, and Vilya, as that topic has been so skillfully covered by the excellent channels Geek Zone and Men of the West on YouTube. What I am going to cover is my unhappiness with the way the 3 rings were visually represented in Lord of the Rings and the laughably awful representations being sold on the internet and from other sources. All of the 3 rings appear briefly in the beginning of Lord of the Rings, but it is hard to discern any detail in their design, and the ring Narya does, however, appear a second time on the right hand of Gandalf in the final scenes at the Grey Havens. However, more detailed images are to be found on the internet with a little research. But before I launch into my rant, let's review what we do know about the design of the rings from Tolkien himself. Narya, the Ring of Fire, was set with a ruby, as Tolkien states in the Silmarillion, though some self-styled experts say it was a red stone, possibly a ruby. Page 288 of the Silmarillion says it was a ruby. Check it out, guys. However, the metal from which it was made is never specified, though it is thought to be gold, and in that I will agree. Vilya, the Ring of Air, was definitely made of gold and set with a sapphire, as again stated in the Silmarillion, though in other works Tolkien describes it as a great blue stone. It was definitely a blue sapphire, though. Sapphires come in every color of the spectrum, including black, white, and clear. Rubies are red sapphires, by the way, and all are composed of crystalline aluminum oxide, with traces of different impurities that give the various sapphires their color. Chromium gives rubies their red color, and traces of titanium and iron produce the blue colors in the classic sapphire. Nenya was made of mithril, which has no exact counterpart in reality, and was set with adamant as stated in the Silmarillion, or a white stone according to Lord of the Rings. There will be a lot more about Nenya later. The 3 rings were made by Celebrimbor, arguably one of the most talented of elven smiths along with Fëanor. I would presume that the design of the rings, the visual presentation, would be along the artistic styles of the elves. Leaves, trees, stars, moonlight, and starlight being loved and appreciated by the elves, I would conclude that such things would be incorporated into their design choices. You have only to look into the artistic styles of such renowned Tolkien illustrators like Alan Lee and John Howe, which were incorporated into the sets of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, to reasonably conclude that the elvish style would be incorporated into their rings. Now for my rant. None of the rings shown in the movie Lord of the Rings seem to have met this design parameter. At least Vilya seems to be made of gold, though in other images it looks more like silver, or at best some dilute alloy of gold. And what's with those 2 wavy lines going down the sides? That's it? That is all of the design? Really? And what is that black stuff between those wavy lines? Dirt? Tar? Or perhaps it is the gunk that clogs up my bathroom sink drain that the plumbers occasionally get to scrape out. There was not much effort put into the design of this ring, and it is nothing more than a grade school exercise. Here is a Vilya ring for sale on the internet. At least the maker got rid of the black gunk, but kept the wavy lines. Too bad it is made of some silvery metal, probably steel, and not gold, from which Tolkien states it was made. Narya is another example of poor design, though at least the movie version got the gold and the red stone correct. In this image of the 3 rings, note that the stone in this ring, though red, has facets that in reality would not reflect or enhance the light coming from within the stone. The bezel that holds the stone has straight lines and sharp angles, which are a lot more dwarfish in design than elvish. And what is that draped over the sides of the ring? A poorly executed braid, or is it a bicycle chain? Even more pathetic are the rings being sold on the internet as Narya rings. Look at this. Gone is the bicycle chain. Now it looks like just a sprocket for some gear teeth to engage. And what is with that red stone? The facets make no sense at all, and frankly, the stone used in this version of Narya looks like some cheap plastic that would be decorating the bottom of a fish tank. This ring is made of steel, and I think you could find better in a box of Cracker Jacks. But wait, the slide down the slippery slope beyond mediocrity is not yet done. Did I just say mediocrity? Mediocrity. And here, this alleged example of Narya is all straight lines and chunky, blocky bezels and an emerald cut stone. It's straight lines and angles. This is no way a design that the elves would use. It would make a great dwarf ring, but this is supposed to be Narya. This amazingly awful Narya ring fails on all levels. Though Narya, as others portrayed it as gold, this version bypasses that entirely. Frankly, I find this version of Narya to be downright creepy. Are those some sort of evil claws or teeth reaching up to capture the stone? This mutant abomination reminds me of the south end of a northbound orc that is suffering from an inflamed and thrombosed hemorrhoid. Yeah, it's that bad. Nenya, as portrayed in the film, also fails, but for other reasons than the previous rings. Tolkien says it bore a white stone that shone with the light of a star. The major problem I have with this design is, where is the white stone? Is that a 6-petaled flower on the ring? Or perhaps it is a propeller from a silent running submarine. At least it looks like someone made an effort into its design, but unfortunately widely missed the mark. Is there a stone hidden under the propeller? Maybe. Or are there quite a number of little stones between the blades? If there are, then they have utterly failed Tolkien's description, though it is a nice try. I mean, how difficult would it have been to do a good job in the design of the rings? So I decided to put my money where my mouth is and design the three myself using a few simple design parameters. 1. Use the metal that Tolkien says they were made out of. Yes. Nenya was a bit problematic as it was made of mithril, but more on that soon. 2. Use the actual stones that Tolkien says were in the rings. Yes. Nenya is a bit vague, but that will be addressed soon. And 3, use the theme designs of the elves, such as trees, leaves, starlight, moonlight, and such. Study the designs of Lee and Howe as inspirations and descriptions used in Lord of the Rings. And 4, avoid straight lines and rigid-looking angles. The dwarfs would be happy with that style, but not the elves. Let's start with Nenya, that Tolkien says was made of mithril and set with a white stone and adamant. Mithril, or true silver, which, as Bilbo described it, was light as a feather and tough as dragon scales, and was extraordinarily valuable. Now, titanium certainly is light as a feather and as tough as dragon scales, but awful as a ring material due to its resistance to machining and casting. Besides, titanium is not particularly valuable. So my design choice is platinum, actually a 95% platinum and 5% iridium alloy, which casts well, has a luscious silver luster, and unlike silver, does not tarnish. Most self-styled Tolkien scholars say that Nenya's stone was a diamond, but I disagree. Tolkien states it is a white stone, whereas a diamond is clear and without any intrinsic color. Secondly, in Lord of the Rings, Nenya is shown with a bright starlight and not with some flashy multicolored bling. Tolkien uses the word adamant to describe Nenya's stone, but the current definition of adamant means hard or unyielding. Interestingly, Tolkien uses the word adamant in his description of the destruction of Mordor, and he refers to gaping gates of steel and adamant. I seriously doubt that to him adamant meant a diamond to describe the gates of Mordor, nor do I presume it to mean a diamond when he describes the stone set in Galadriel's ring. There is an archaic definition of adamant which is applied to stones, and it means, and I quote, a legendary rock or mineral to which many properties were attributed, formerly associated with diamonds or lodestone. When Gandalf, Legolas, and Gimli first meet King Theoden in his hall, Tolkien describes Theoden's crown as having set within it a diamond. Note that he did not use the word adamant. If Tolkien meant for Nenya to have a diamond, I believe he would have used that word as he did with Theoden's crown, but he didn't. So, is this adamant, this hard white stone, as mythical as Mithril? Actually, no. This is a real white star sapphire, almost as hard as a diamond, and in direct light, it shows a remarkable six-pointed aster or star. This is what I believe Tolkien really meant by a white stone. In the Fellowship of the Ring, at the end of the chapter, The Mirror of Galadriel, Galadriel asked Sam if she saw a ring on her finger, and Sam replied, I saw a star through your finger. I don't think that was a diamond he was looking at. If he saw a star, here is the star. It was a white sapphire. Another example of why I think Tolkien had in mind white star sapphires as the elvish gem can be found in the chapter Many Partings from Return of the King. And I quote, and she took a white gem like a star that lay upon her breast, hanging upon a silver chain, and she set the chain about Frodo's neck. Pretty much nails it, doesn't it? So Nenya is to be made with platinum and set with a white star sapphire. But what else can be done as a design theme from the parameters set out? The 7 stars, could they be the Pleiades, were important to the elves. With 1 star and starlight in the central stone, then let's put 3 stars on each side of the ring. Let's use tiny diamonds set with prongs that look like the 6-pointed aster of a white sapphire. They would sparkle like stars in the night sky, with the prongs holding the diamonds, enhancing the starlight theme. Finally, I added a circlet or girdle of oak leaves around the stone bezel. This design element comes directly from Tolkien, as he states on page 293 of The Two Towers. The design is elegant, but let's not overstate it. Shown as a computer rendering of my idea. This is the final computer rendering of Nenya, but it does not compare to the actual ring. Drawing on paper or in a computer of a digital model of a ring is not the same thing as actually bringing the ring into reality. And this is Nenya. Nenya as it should have been. Vilya was a lot easier to design. As Tolkien states, it was made of gold and set with a sapphire, or great blue stone. So the first task was to find a great blue stone. You can buy artificial, created in the lab sapphires inexpensively, but this had to be a natural great blue sapphire. So after shopping around, one was found that was eye clear of any inclusions and of a beautiful ice blue color, and around it, a gold ring then had to be designed. Trees are, of course, beloved by the elves, especially Telperion and Laurelin, the 2 trees of Valinor. They were the inspiration that was incorporated into my design of Vilya. This design was based on the depiction of trees and the images of trees as used in the movie The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. The trees of my interpretation of Vilya were done as a four-stranded braid in the Elvish style. In order to have the trees stand out prominently in contrast to the ring, the two trees were given a polish, whereas the ring itself was left in the original post-casting matte finish. The effect of this design element turned out to be more remarkable than anticipated. However, a mere computer rendering or hand drawing can never come close to what the final result was. This was the ring that Elrond kept, and frankly, of the two representations, which ring would you rather have? So this is the movie version of Vilya, and this is my version of Vilya. It should be an easy choice. And here is Vilya, reimagined. Yes, I am a geek, and that is my car's license plate. Narya was an interesting study, and the first ring I designed and had cast. Narya was presumably made of gold, though Tolkien did not state one way or the other if it was gold or mithril. Narya was set with a ruby as stated in the Silmarillion, and set with a red stone in other of Tolkien's works. For the ring's design, I chose an asymmetric vine and leaf motif, with the pattern of the vines being somewhat organic, and the leaves were based on elven brooches as seen in Lord of the Rings. Initially, I chose a star ruby again, based on the appreciation of stars and starlight that had been done in the design of Nenya. However, as much as I disdain artificial or lab rubies, a natural ruby of adequate size and quality would have been outrageously expensive, with the cost being 5 to 6 figures. So since I did not want to take out a second mortgage on my house, I had to opt for a lab-grown ruby. No. Definitely a no. And this is Narya reimagined, and as it should have been, and as it is. But wait, we have an issue here, and that is a ruby worthy of the elves should be a deep red. Definitely not the color of a radioactive neon blob or some girly pink to purple candy bauble. A deep red like the color of a glass of Tolkien Cabernet. Now here's a ruby worthy of the elves. Unfortunately, a 3-carat natural ruby like this one runs about $20,000, and that's a little bit beyond my income, so I did have to settle for a man-made ruby. There is nothing in the Tolkien legendarium that says Narya was a star ruby, a red stone, but no mention of starlight. So it was off to Villa Jewelers, and with their help, we found a very good stone and substituted it for the star ruby that you just saw. And here is the final result. No. Still definitely no. And unfortunately, no. And this is Narya as it now is. Beautiful, deep wine red ruby. These are not the 3 elven rings. However, these are. Yeah. Jesus, this cat hair gets everywhere.